Welcome back everybody to our studies in AQA A-Level History. In this video specifically, what we're going to be doing is talking about the 1955 general election. We spent the last video looking in a little bit of detail at the role of Winston Churchill as sort of post-war Prime Minister, and now we're going to think about his resignation and the election which immediately follows the resignation of Churchill under the former Foreign Secretary and then, of course, the person who ascends to the Labour leadership, Sir Anthony Eden. So in terms of context, as I noted in previous lessons, that in April 1955, Winston Churchill resigns, and his successor is his Foreign Secretary, Sir Anthony Eden, who succeeds him as both Conservative leader and, by extension, Prime Minister, and he will succeed Winston Churchill as well as immediately call a general election to try and consolidate his authority. Now, in terms of what the general mood is associated with Great Britain at the time, there is a general national mood in support of continuity. So Britain had recently brought an end to rationing, which is of course something that brings about quite a bit of prosperity. Rationing that existed from the start of the Second World War all the way through to 1955. We also see a rising of prosperity, generally speaking. We also see the widely celebrated coronation of Queen Elizabeth II in 1953, and there were also other major milestones like Roger Bannister's 4-minute mile and the Everest conquest of Everest. And on top of all of this, we have the fact that the Labour Party, under Clement Attlee, is internally divided. We see that during the 1950s, there is a schism beginning to develop, a rift between the left-wing Bevanites and the more centrist Gateskiellites that were undermining the coherence of the Labour platform. So basically, the conclusion that you can draw in terms of what the mood in Great Britain is at the turn of this general election is essentially everyone's quite positive. There's no more rationing. The prosperity that existed under Churchill in the sort of second period of his tenureship is generally positive. Churchill wasn't the greatest post-war prime minister, to say the least, but there was general prosperity, there was general affluence and all this kind of stuff going on. You have a positive vibes. The Queen has been coronated, and this is a sort of new Elizabethan era. We've got major milestones. And on top of that, you have the very specific fact that not only was everybody generally quite supportive of the Conservatives, everyone was generally quite happy, which tends to benefit incumbents, but that the challenging party, the Labour Party, were facing their own really, really important divisions, which we will get to in other lessons, but just as a basic idea, there is a schism that is beginning to develop within the Labour Party. And so fundamentally, then, when we think about the general election campaign, the Conservative manifesto was united for peace and progress, and it emphasised quite modest goals. It emphasised the furtherance of prosperity, the protection and the development of personal freedoms, the idea of national unity, and also this idea of peaceful nuclear deterrence as a sort of foreign policy issue. It offered very few bold pledges, the general idea here being that if it isn't broke, don't fix it. And really, given the national mood at the time, nothing was really broken. There's no need to say this country is, and also the fact that when you are an incumbent party that is going into a general election, you have to run on the things that are good about what you have been doing, whereas the opposing party can attack all the things that are bad in the country. You can't really say that we're going to change this and change that and do this and do that, and this part of the country is broken and that part of the country is broken, because then the inevitable question that comes your way is, well, if it's all broken, then why haven't you fixed it? You've been in office for this long. And so they proposed a modest manifesto. Chancellor Rab Butler's pre-election giveaway budget as well, which essentially featured a number of income tax cuts, would also help to bolster public support ahead of polling day. You can see that fundamentally there is a lot of positivity going into this election. In addition to this, you have the fact that Labour's manifesto wasn't very good. It lacked clarity, fundamentally. There was internal dissent, there was a diluted message. Campaign promises included things like the renationalisation of steel and transport, as well as the ending of the 11+ exam, as well as trying to establish a sense of what is known as industrial democracy. But there isn't much focus on unity, or there isn't much focus really on much at all. And so we can start to see that this campaign is favouring the Conservatives. This was also the first general election to be televised in a recorded format, with 3 hours of coverage by Richard Dimbleby, which survives as and offers us a glimpse into the general election results across the country. But of course, this did not significantly influence the outcome, and it is now a very common feature of general elections that we have quite a lot of coverage of those elections taking place. In terms of the result then, turnout for a start was down from 82% in 1951 down to 76.8% in this election, but the seat distribution was pretty astonishing. The House of Commons, at the time had 630 total seats, and the Conservatives won a total of 345 of those seats, plus 23 or 24 during this time period. Labour, at the same time, only secured 277 seats, which was a minus of 18. The Liberals kept their 6 seats, which was unchanged, and there are some other seats, for example, such as Sinn Féin, which won 2 seats in Northern Ireland. This gives the Conservative a majority of 60 seats, but this is the first post-war election in which the governing party increased its majority from one term to the next, which is a nice little additional bit of stats for you if you're somebody who likes election statistics and likes to memorize election statistics for your exams. Furthermore, vote share, 49.7% of the popular vote went to the Conservatives, so nearly a majority. And given that we live in a system where first past the post means that you don't need a majority, the fact that there nearly was a majority in this election is quite staggering. Such vote shares are unlikely to take place, really, as more and more political parties start to take votes from here and there. 46.4% for the Labour Party, with Liberals getting 2.7%, and then other parties such as Sinn Féin and Plaid Cymru in Wales getting around 1.2% of the popular vote. The modest swing then was around a plus 1.6 to 1.7% increase for the Conservatives nationwide.